Okay guys, John the Van Guy. Right, removing and replacing the gearbox on a Talbot Express. Well, it's doable. First of all, of course, you have to remove the drive shafts, which is not too difficult, there's plenty on that. To take off the gearbox, what I found I used a load of jacks suspended underneath to hold the engine and to hold the gearbox, and undid all the bolts. There's three main bolts. That's one of them going through here. Three main bolts, and one at the top, and one at the top. Just about see the. Oh, you just about see it there, and one on the other side. There's also a lot of flange bolts. Now you've got to get the flanges off as well. They lie, these are the flanges, lie between the gearbox and the flywheel, so they've got to come off. They look here, and this is obviously the starter motor's got to come off. Don't lose, by the way, don't lose when you take these plates off. Again, because it's between the flywheel and the gearbox, you can't take the gearbox without taking these off. But they have these stupid M7 screws. Now they're difficult to get hold of these, so don't lose them. You can get them online. That's M7, 12 millimeters long. The pitch is 1 mil. So that's a bit of information I found out. I didn't know there was so much information to be found out about bolts. So I did get it off eventually, second-hand one from scrapyard. The problem was this end piece was cracked. So this end piece is the fifth gear, is behind here. So you can actually replace the fifth gear, but if the fifth gear is gone on a box, then probably the other gears have been under stress as well. So you have to. Anyway, it's only all these bolts around here to take off this, so I replaced that cover, and also I made my own gasket to actually fit in. Paper gasket. You can actually do it again. It's online using a preening hammer with a rounded end. Just you can just put the sheet onto the flange and hammer around all the edges with the rounded bit of your hammer. And eventually you can actually formulate a new gasket. Right, now, by devious means, I've been attempting to put this back. You grease up the shaft and everything that's metal contacts you grease up. So use a good grease on that before you put it all back. Everything's supported, of course, on axle stands, good strong axle stands, otherwise, because you're doing a lot of shoving and pulling. All right, the technique I used for actually getting this thing back. I've tried various novel techniques, and this was mine, which seemed to work quite well. Oh, by the way, when I did the engine, I didn't undo these bolts for this particular mounting. The other mounting I'd undone ages ago. And this whole rubber thing came out when I jacked up the engine, so that's something to think about. Right, so what did I do to get the gearbox in? Well, I had this idea, put a scaffold tube across the top using ratchets. These are about £7 from Toolstation, ratchet set. Put that around the gearbox, drop the engine so it's on an angle, and position the gearbox accordingly so that it's in line with the engine. Then also it's advisable to remove this water pipe which runs at the back of the engine. There's a rectangular flange which is bolted to the engine. You remove that. This gives you a little bit more leeway. When you're trying to get it back again, it gets in the way. So that's the water pipe that goes around the back of the engine. So release that, and at the end of it there's two bolts on a flange holding it to the pipe at the other end of the engine. You've got to undo those as well. And well, you might not have to do it. You might get away with just undoing that flange, the holding flange, which is right at the back of the engine. It's 2 bolts. Right. What else can I tell you? Right. What I did by jigging these 2 ratchet straps, I got the whole thing in line. The idea is to try not to put any stress on the gearbox shaft as it goes in to the flywheel, through the space in the flywheel. So supporting with these, I thought that's one way. The differential is on that side, and so you've got to allow for the different weight ratios when you sign these up. I've had to take them off and move them again, also, so you learn how to use ratchets. That's online as well. Use ratchets properly and undo them. Now, what I did, eventually using jacks and various methods, I got underneath and tried it. It's a very heavy beast, so you've got to be careful with it. And what I did, eventually lined up the actual holes, and so I could actually see through where the mounting bolts went through, the 3 mounting bolts, and got it as close as possible. And then I used a set of Allen keys, big strong Allen keys, here, to actually go through the holes and line up onto the mountings. I used a gaffer tape to actually hold them in place, and that helped me to keep the thing aligned when I pushed and jiggled. Now I got it so far, and very close, within millimetres. On each one, which is quite handy, there's actually what they call them protruding bits, sort of mountings, which gives you some sort of guidance. Anyway, I got them all really close, using the Allen keys to hold it all in place, jiggled about a bit, and then started screwing them in using an Allen key, screw it in evenly all the way around, and eventually went in. I did, just to in case the shaft was sticking, I used what's this, a 36 on, to move the flywheel a bit on here, just to move the flywheel, jig it back and forwards a bit to sort of help the shaft go in at the other end. Now, so far I've done, I can put those flanges back later. I just want to see if this whole thing works. Well, I'm at that stage now, so you can see it's doable. Obviously everything has to go back, and don't forget to put oil in the gearbox and the differential. The oil for the gearbox, I know, goes through where that the brake light switch goes, or reversing light switch, whatever it is, on the top. That's the starter motor. It's got to go in there. So various things and bits and pieces have got to happen. So we'll wait and see. I'll report back. I hope this is helpful, and it just shows it's doable, I think. Bye, folks.